Hello and welcome to the show with me, Gillian Gossel. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Heather Montgomery, who is the founder and CEO of PleazeMe, which is an inclusive, anonymous platform for people to explore their sexuality. Whew, that's a bit of a mouthful. Welcome to the show, Heather.
Thank you, Gillian. So nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, I'm delighted. Now, I'm interested because we had chatted a little beforehand, but your background, you're not a sex worker or someone working in making pornographic films or, tell me a bit about your background.
I was a repressed...
They're the best kind.
Repressed Midwestern 40 or 30 something at the time. And I just truly went in to buy a sex toy and was so embarrassed that I ran out of there with a big blue dildo that probably cost $10 and was worth nothing. I just, was kind of one of those experiences where I didn't realize just how underprepared I was, if that makes sense, even though I drove to the next town to do it. And so I guess in the middle of the night, my psyche just decided there had to be a better way. And I had a whole dream. And the whole idea woke me up at 3 a.m. And I don't know if it was the very day or the next day or a couple days later, but nonetheless, it was a dream. And then I just kind of stared at it for 5 years, wondering if I really wanted to get into this work.
Because your background is not in the sex industry.
It's
marketing,
in
medical. Yeah.
Medical, yeah. So I worked for 15 years with physicians, helping them integrate natural health and anti-aging into their practices. So nutraceuticals, vitamins in potent doses that prove to be therapeutic as mono or adjunct therapy to pharmacology and weight loss. And, what I realized along the way, even in my own life, was that I could be as physically fit and be taking as many vitamins and having all this wonderful physical health. But if my mental, emotional, and spiritual health were failing, then I still didn't feel whole. You know what I mean? I still didn't feel healthy and ready to, attack the world. So I still feel like I'm in health and wellness, if that makes sense. I just am talking about a different subject, which seems to get, a lot of attention one way or another, or no attention at all in another way.
That's true, actually. Yes. I know I wrote erotica some years back. And when I met men, I just say it. They go, ooh, and I'm going, I just wrote something, it doesn't mean that I'm going to take my clothes off and demonstrate. But this likewise, banks and financial institutions will often ignore you. So you either get more attention than you want from, your male colleagues, and then nothing from the banks.
Right. And, people all have sex. I mean, unless you're asexual, we love you too. There's nothing that says you have to have sex. But as a species, I think we can agree that we have parts that go together so we can procreate, number one. So then we all pretty much were built to have sex. We pee, we eat, we, get rid of toxins via going to the bathroom. We all do these things and we all have sex.
And I think even more importantly is not just to procreate. Most animals procreate and it's very fast. And I'm not quite sure if there's an enjoyment factor. They say that dolphins, I think, enjoy sex, but human beings actually have parts that are made for sex, and they're made for enjoyment and for, just having fun.
And I think cats actually, it's very painful for them to have sex, believe it or not.
Oh, I didn't know
If you've
that.
ever heard cats having sex, it sounds like a rape,
Wow. And actually dolphins rape too, which is mad. Anyway, that's that's the animal stuff.
It's the animal stuff. No. And of course, we have a different set of thumbs.
Opposable
thumbs and different brain and pleasure centers. And yes, we definitely treat sex differently. I just meant that, we all have it. It's in our biology, it's part of our life, right?
Yes.
Part of our life.
And I know
yes,
obviously
it can be pleasurable.
yes, one would hope so. I mean, and also if you think about it, obviously when teenagers, all those hormones, it's all about sex. It's sex. Right. It's boys and girls. It's just the whole thing looking at boys and then things calm down a bit. And then maybe, is that where your site comes in? So it's not necessarily for teenagers because they have enough testosterone and all that stuff, estrogen and all those hormones pulsing through their bodies. Yeah. Is it an over 18 site?
It's over 21.
Over 21.
Actually,
okay, that's a good age.
21.
People are becoming adults at that stage.
Well, and we just wanted to make sure there would not be children on the platform. we're saying, hey, let's talk about sex here. This is an adult topic. A lot of the reasons why it gets censored on other platforms is because they have people 13 and up on those platforms. And how do they keep that content from being in front of those people, right? And so they have a bigger challenge. So it was always going to be a platform for adults. And we just felt, when we're looking at pictures and trying to decide, is somebody 17 years old, 322 days, or are they 18 and 3? Like it's really difficult to monitor. And so that was another reason. But the other thing is too, what we found out in our focus group in marketing is 18, 20, 21, even up to maybe 25, they don't think they have any issues in this department, to your point. They don't know what they don't know until they start to experience and learn it. And I think that the site is a great place to learn. But I think once you already have something that you have a burning desire to get questioned, then you go, oh, I want to go here. I have a need. I want to learn. I want to know something. So we do see, ages 25 to 55 being the majority of our membership base. Yeah.
So the site platform itself, it's anonymous.
It is.
Totally anonymous. That's kind of nice. And tell me, it's divided into 7 different worlds. How does that work?
Yeah, so there was 2 things. The anonymity is I think the most crucial part. And that is because even though we don't need to be ashamed of the sex that we have, I think having too many people have knowledge about your intimate thoughts and goings on can have ramifications in your life, right? The reason we don't talk about sex on social media is we don't want that to be what people remember us by. So the anonymity was key so that you can go in, you have an avatar and a screen name, and that allows you to really ask the questions that you've always wanted to ask. Maybe research topics that you've always wanted to research. And there's credible thought leaders and sex educators and brands, and there's great information there, and that was also critically important. And then the worlds allow you to have the content around you that you're most interested in. So for example, if I'm very interested in BDSM, then I would want my content to be about BDSM. And if I was very interested in not BDSM, just as a stark opposite, then I might not want to see any BDSM in my content. So the worlds were created so that people could be in a like-minded community, so they felt less likelihood of judgment because you and I like the same things. We can find a commonality there. And we don't have to judge each other for the things we like sexually because we're pretty much in agreement. And then when they go and visit other worlds, people can know, oh, they're visiting, they're new, they're learning. Oh,
that's a nice touch. So you're anonymous, but you're a new visitor. So they're not going to, especially
you have a ring around your avatar that shows the color of your world. Every world has a color, a name, and a symbol. I wanted it to be like astrology so that people would be like, oh, what does it mean to be a Zeta? And go explore it instead of having a preconceived notion of a label.
And it is quite nice because you mentioned, I mean, I think that anonymity is very important because, like, obviously we know if we are all our children, we don't want to know our parents are doing it. We really don't want to know that, right? Even as grown-ups, we don't want to know that. But similarly, I don't necessarily want to know what my next door neighbors are doing or my friends are doing. It's not, I have a friendship, and when I'm talking to them, I don't want to be thinking about what they do in their bedroom. It's not something that would sit comfortably with me, I guess. Well, it would, but I like the idea of anonymity because you can go in there and explore stuff and have fun. Yeah. And say no one's judging you, and you can ask, because actually you said asking questions, because obviously with the 50 Shades, furore back in 2013, everyone hadn't bought ropes and they're doing all sorts of mad, crazy stuff, all sorts of mad reasoning. But it's very hard to get accurate information about, for example, if you wanted to go to a BDSM club, to take a more extreme example, what are the rules? How do you find someone who's going to tell you this is what you do, what you wear, what the permissions are, what you're expected to do? I mean, there's a lot of rules because, especially when you go to something like a BDSM club, because everything is it can be difficult. So there has to be very strong rules to protect everybody. Right. Whereas going to a bar, you can chat up someone, no one's going to pay, much attention. So if you really had an interest, or to go to something else, tantric sex, whatever.
Exactly.
How do you find that out? Because online it's not so good.
Well,
generally online it's
that was exactly how I felt, and I really tell people I built this product for myself.
Always the best kind.
I don't mean to be selfish, but I'm saying, like, these were things I wanted to solve for me. right? Solve for X, solve for Y, And I went online to search just what you said. I was curious. I had read the book, 50 Shades. I'm not, like every other buddy, however many million have read that book. And I started to do research, and I didn't know if the page I would land on, are they credible? And then there was no real way to ask them a question. It was just an article. And then I would go to another site and I would be like, well, this is really not, I had specific questions about it. Let me just say that. I had my concerns, or well, what about this? And how does that work thing? And I kept looking for the answers to those questions in articles. And I'm like, they're not there.
And
there were other things there. There were other things there. I'm not saying they weren't good articles, but my question didn't get answered.
Yeah. And also it's very hard if you want to ask a question, like you want to ask a question on a tech site, your name is there.
Exactly.
There's Heather asking, how do I reinstall my blah, 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 blah. But you don't necessarily want to put your name on a sex question.
I'll give you a great example. I just Googled myself this morning. I think everybody should do this every once in a while, just to see what comes up. And there were a couple of Twitter posts from somebody else's Twitter with my name tagged on it. And so, to be honest with you, they were benign. There was nothing wrong with those tweets. But what if it was like something I thought was between she and I, or that was one, you know what I mean? Like, where it was something that I didn't agree with, or they were talking badly about me, just to say, giving examples. Everything is out there now. You have very little control over what's shown. And like I said, it didn't bother me. There was nothing wrong with it. But I thought to myself, the power of other people to take your name, especially with what's going on right now all over the world, and in the United States, especially with cancer culture and, people losing their jobs, like there's a lot of reason to want to keep certain things private, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I mean, even on a very standard, basic approach, it's well known that employers will go through this. Yeah, Facebook. Yeah, I mean, innocuous. So you're right, and then if you are employed and you call in sick, but you've been out in the party the night before,
you're done.
Yeah, so you can be called out in different ways.
Yeah.
So that's very important. So the 7 worlds. If I just go back to them again, so BDSM is one end, and then you have sort of spiritual sex. So what's kind of in the middle?
Yeah, it's interesting. So one of the other problems I was trying to solve for myself was that there was basically two labels that I feel are ubiquitously used in the sex world, and that's vanilla and kink.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, that's it. You can get into the kink a little bit more and say, oh, this is sadomasochism, and this is bondage and discipline, and this is fetish, right? They have a few more subcategories, but most people don't even know that. I mean, they really don't. They don't even know what BDSM stands for. They just know what it means.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you have vanilla. And I didn't identify with either. And I was like, well, what about me? Like, I don't feel like I'm really vanilla. I'm curious, and I'd like to explore and do some of those things in that world, but I don't live there. Like, some people live there, meaning that's their entire lifestyle. If they're not having 50 Shades of Grey sex, they're not having sex. Like the movie, Christian was no regular sex. We're not going to sleep in the same bed. It's only the red room. It's only when I want. I'm the dom, you're the sub. That was a lifestyle. That's the difference between, I want to try it, and then I can go back and still have, I think Chuck on Billions, the show that it's on Showtime or one of those networks, is another one that it depicts that, where he's not happy unless he's a sub. Every time he has sex, he wants to be playing that role. And his wife got tired of it. She goes, can't we come out of that once in a while? It was a pretty famous show. So that's the difference between a lifestyle. And so I really felt like you also didn't go just from vanilla to extreme sadomasochism in one step. Like, whoosh, it just doesn't happen. And so you tend to kind of like tiptoe outside of what's the first thing I feel comfortable with. And then after that, what might I feel comfortable with? And then after that, what might I feel comfortable with? Until you find your boundary. Or, nope, I don't like that. I do like that. I don't like that. And then you can really start to define your pleasure map, if you will. And then hopefully learn how to communicate that pleasure map to a partner, if that makes sense. And so that's the reason why the worlds were created, so that people could really identify their pleasure maps and then learn how to share them.
And there's an in-depth quiz at the start, isn't it? That
Yeah,
helps people, because how would you say, oh, I'm not quite sure what I am.
right.
The quiz helps people figure out where they can start.
The Harry Potter sorting hat.
Oh yeah.
It was kind of like, well, I was thinking, like, how do I,
Yeah.
figure out what people want in bed? So yeah, it was, and you know what? Since we designed, it took 6 months to design. It wasn't doctors. It was a team of individuals that we all got together and said, how would this work to make it applicable to everyone? We want it to be a place where everyone can go, and what's going to differentiate. And then we just decided it was really based on preferences, and it was more about something that somebody wasn't willing to do that put them in a world versus what they were. And if that makes sense, it's like, nope, I'm not going past this.
Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned earlier brands and experts. So are they on the channels?
Yes, they're the channels.
How many are there, and what do they do?
I think we're up to like 335 right now.
Wow.
And they do, yes. We've been, one of the things we wanted to do before we launched was make sure we had a good mix of content providers so that when people land on the site, they had the resources to connect with along with each other. So the brands range from thought leaders, relationship counselors, educators, technology companies, different apps that are out there, product manufacturers, artists, erotic art, like we were talking about your erotic art and erotic imagery and artwork and paintings, or not paintings, photographs, which is all artworks, but of all different types. Music, hopefully. Eventually, I'd love to get music on here and do a whole music experiment with sex. Do the people in the same worlds like the same kind of sex music?
Yeah.
Which would probably make sense. And then we could have a channel where if you like, your world, you could just hit play. It turns on all the
Barry
music.
White, here we come.
Barry White. Yeah. I cried for 3 days when he died. It was in Chicago. Yes, one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah. I like classical music for some reason. I don't know why.
When you're having sex.
Yeah, lofty.
Yeah.
Don't know. Yeah, seems nice. So, how have you been funded? So far?
We've been raising capital via angel investors. We started in December of 2017. To date, we've raised 1.3 million. We have another commitment for $1 million that's supposed to be here any day, but with COVID, we had a few delays. And so I don't count it until it's in the bank account, of course. So we can say we've raised 1.3 million. And really just the way any entrepreneur does, which is create a business plan, create a team, make sure you have a market segment and that you understand it, and that what your monetization and or exit strategy is. And then that's the story you tell, because there really aren't any investors out there that go, I just want to invest because I feel like doing good.
Well,
they're in that. Well, there might be some, but most of them are looking at, I don't want to lose my money. I want to increase. I'm investing this to turn it into more.
Yeah. Well, it's a business. So, it's not a charity. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so unless you are a 501(c), and then that's a different story.
Yeah.
But as it comes to traditional business, they want to believe your exit strategy. If they're seeing this investment as, I'm going to cash out 10, 50x when the company sells, or they need to see how you're going to pay them every year, through the profitability of the company. And really, is the team capable of delivering that? And is the leader somebody we believe in? That's what I've found, is that first they have to like the leader and believe that the leader has the passion and the fortitude to pull it through the hard times, the good times, and that they're not going to give up. I think that's probably number one.
And what is your route to a monetization? How are you going to work that?
Yeah, eventually, if you think of us as social media, more similar to Facebook than necessarily Insta or Twitter, right? In the way that it functions, and the multitude of different things you can do there. Like Twitter is just one, right? 444 characters in a link. So it's more like Facebook. And so of course, advertising will be one of our main revenue streams. We have a shop where we carry a certain number of toys and costumes and clothing so that we can help subsidize the business. It's not really built to be a main revenue stream. We didn't build it to be a shopping cart. We built it to be a social platform. But being a woman in sex tech, raising money is a little bit more challenging than it is if I were a man not in sex tech, right?
It's a double whammy.
Yeah, it's a double whammy. And I don't say that to make people feel bad for me, but we looked for ways to help offset the need for capital as early as possible, right? And that was one way. And then we have a membership where it's free. You get your one world. If you want to travel to the other worlds and have a private photo vault, then it's $2.50 a month for the VIP. And you can't post pictures as an anonymous member. And so other than in your photo vault. And I guess that makes a lot of sense because you're anonymous. Why would you want to post pictures?
Yeah.
And then the second thing is we really wanted to make sure that no child pornography and or sex trafficking or any laws that are currently in place that are now holding IT companies and platforms liable for what their users do on their platform. So now I'm criminally and civilly liable if somebody does something illegal on my platform.
That's a big responsibility.
It's very big. And listen, we're doing everything we can to make sure that we have those safeguards in place so that number one, it doesn't get posted in the first place. It's difficult to even get it on there. And number two, if it is found, then that person is going to get sent to the authorities. I mean, we don't mess around with child pornography and sex trafficking. That's no.
And how will you monitor that? Do you have, like, you know, in Facebook, they have all those people who monitor the stuff, and they're quite scarred, actually. It's quite difficult because there's so much on Facebook. But will it pose a problem, do you think?
Well, again, yes, it would be if we were allowing members to post their own content. The only people that can post content like that are the channels. And the channels, we know who they are. But we don't take, and this is really important, we don't take any private data. So we don't know your name, your address, your phone number. We don't use geo-targeting. None of that is there. We're collecting data in a HIPAA way. In America, HIPAA is the Health and Information Protection Act and Privacy and Protection. And that means that all of your data is basically stored as a user number and a screen name. So we know your general age bracket by 10 years. We know your gender identity. We know what type of gender you're interested in, what type of relationship you want, whether it's monogamous or swinger, that kind of stuff, but nothing identifying, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so that's part of our plan, is to not collect that data. And then as that anonymous member, you cannot upload photos and videos. You can put a YouTube link, but YouTube does a layer of scrubbing those, right? And
that makes sense. Yeah, that's clever.
Why we allow that, and it plays inside PleazeMe still, and you could still share meaningful content that you like. You can add GIFs, GIF, PHF, like Giphy. We use Tenor, but so that gives the user ability to kind of have a personality and be funny and have imagery, right? But most of it is just typing, talking with one
interesting
another and sharing content that you like with your friends, you know?
Okay. And then tell me, how many people have signed up so far? What's your user base like?
So we have 65% women. And I bring that up first because I really want to drive home the fact that I wanted to make a resource for women because I felt we didn't have the same resources that men had in this area for a long time. And it's not just for women, but I also wanted women to feel like when they get here, there's not just a bunch of men waiting to pounce on them, right? So we spend all our money marketing to women with the ladies' night mentality. Then as soon as the men find out are here, they will come. And it's true, we have 32% men, and we have not spent one dime marketing to them. Wow. So they find us. And then 1.2% is non-binary, and 1.8 is transgender men and women. And then we limit the number of members for the first year while we tested the technology and we're adding the channels. And so we just opened up in January, and we've generated 6,500 members, doing some testing budgets and organic and finalizing a few of the VIP functions before we launched our big launch, and really understood our acquisition costs and where we're getting people from.
And when is the big launch? When is the major launch?
Yeah, so this is the last week before the launch, and that's because we're doing crowdfunding with our existing channels. And so we want them to get the most visibility. They've been with us from the beginning, and as we grow, we want to introduce the new members to all of them. And so we're just sharing our plans with our current channels, and then we're going to launch it. It's ready to launch. We just haven't pulled the lever until we've finished meeting with all of our channels first. Yeah.
What technology are you using at the moment, and what technology might you use in the future?
So you mean like the stack, the technology stack that we built the platform on?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we use Python and Django, and the database servers. That's a little outside of my expertise. I don't want to say the wrong thing. People are going to think I'm an idiot. But SQL, I don't know. We have people for that, and we've written all of our own code, and that's important. We have an internal team. I did not outsource to. Everyone says, "Why didn't you outsource to India?" Because the privacy and the data and the most leaks come from employees. They actually don't come from hackers. And
Right.
so knowing your employees and having that secure internal thing. And I also just, I didn't want it to get knocked off.
Yeah. I mean, you control it all. And where does blockchain come into this technology?
Yeah, so we originally, I came from the blockchain industry as well, in medical and cannabis. And so I wanted to do a token because we've gamified the site and we have rewards points. I thought, well, why not use a token? And then we were going to do an ICO as well. So we were going to have both a reg and a token. But it was really during the time when the blockchain industry was having a reset because of all the people that had raised 20, 50, 80 million and then never did anything with it, but bought Lamborghinis. Yeah, and then it had to really kind of even out. And I think it's back on the upswing. We wanted to be able to have anonymous transactions because if people didn't want things to be on their credit card receipts because it's a sex toy or whatever, then that was part of it. And then really just tokenizing the reward system and allowing people to use those rewards to make purchases in our store or upgrade their VIP and buy PleazeMe gear or any of the different services that would be available. But we held off. We had an investor who came from Wall Street and he said, I'm going to give you money, but not if you do blockchain right away. And I said, money in the hand.
Yeah.
Blockchain, I'm going to need another $1 million to get that all done properly and do an ICO. And so we took his good advice and we've been just building. So, and the other thing I got from the industry was I had a napkin idea at the time. And they were like, it's better to go ICO once you have a full product. Now people want to see the product and then go. So we could still do that. We haven't looked at it yet. I've also been evaluating blockchain if there's a way, this has been a thought of mine for 2 years, to give people the control of their own data, meaning that all of their data is in their own private blockchain. And if somebody wants to buy their eyeball based on their data of what they like and everything, then they get compensated for that. I don't know if it's like a reversal advertising program.
There are some sites that do that for sure, that reward it connects the brand with the viewer directly, and then there's transactional value there.
Yeah.
So a lot to be done. And future plans then. So you're launching your crowdfunding. You're going to launch the new site, the whole site within coming weeks.
The site is launched. It's been open. What's launching is the marketing budgets.
Okay.
And the crowdfunding campaign has a separate, landing page and system. So that's the part we're going to be sharing with the general public. But it is even available to look at right now.
Okay.
So you could go there if you wanted.
So if people want to go and look, the site is PleazeMe with a Z in the middle.
Yes, with the Z, PleazeMe.
Oh, Z. Tomato.
Tomato, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Heather. Yeah. Fascinating. I love your starter. What do you say? A repressed Midwestern girl. The best kind of innovators, that's for sure. Thank you indeed. And we will chat soon.
Thank you, Jillian. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.